For years, I've seen stories about fathers and sons that serve together. And so today, on International Women's Day, I wanted the opportunity to highlight a mother and daughter team that serves in the military together. I'm Captain PJ VanAuken.
And I'm Corporal VanAuken. I'm a percussionist with the Governor General's Horse Guard Band. What do you do?
I've got a few roles. First, I'm the officer commanding C Squadron for the Governor General's Horse Guards. I am also the senior brass and reed band advisor for the Canadian Army. And I serve as an aide-de-camp for the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario.
What did you think about me joining?
I was all for it, and I was actually very glad for it. It was something I had hoped for both you and your brother, and that's been realized because your brother serves in the regiment as well. Because as a parent, my primary goal is to make you into a good adult and help you to realize that there isn't anything you can't overcome. But sometimes it requires some mental and physical resiliency. And I can't think of a better place for you to prove to yourself how strong you are than in the military. So what was your first year in the military like?
It certainly wasn't the culture shock for me that it was for a lot of other people during their first year. Just knowing what I was getting into based on the stories that you've told me, I kind of knew what to expect and knew what to look forward to.
What's been your most memorable event or moment so far in your military career?
It would have to be my leadership course that I just finished a part of. Just when it gets to the point you haven't slept in a number of days, you get to realize who you really are, as well as the people around you, and you just see a very raw form of everybody, and get to see that people are still amazing despite severe sleep deprivation. And overall, just getting to see how you react to stress is kind of a cool thing. What about you? What's one of your most memorable moments?
Well, I think my most memorable mother-daughter moment was one of my last concerts when I was still conducting the band. For every musician in the Toronto area anyway, playing on the stage at Roy Thompson Hall is a bit of a goal or an aspiration, and to be able to conduct on that stage, having you in that band and being on that stage together, that was pretty memorable for me.
And just us walking up to gigs and people going, "Oh, there's two of you."
There is that. That's right. So what is it that keeps you in the military? We talked about why you joined. What keeps you in?
It would have to be all of the opportunities that I've gotten. For someone as young as I am to still have all these amazing stories that I get to share with people. I've lived a very full life for being so young, and I'll continue to get so many amazing opportunities through the military that will just make my life even better. What about you?
For me, I think it's the people. You meet, some incredible people in the military, and they become a level of friend that you can't compare in the civilian world. They've been through some pretty tough times with you. They've seen you at your worst. They've seen you at your best, and you know that they always have your back. And that friendship isn't necessarily understood by people who haven't lived it, but the people that we get to work with and serve with every day, that's what keeps me in.
So since you joined in 1991, what are some things that have changed in the Army?
I think for women, it's a very different place. I joined the band as a musician, and then changed trades and became an armored crewman in the early 90s. And when I went on my first armored crewman course, I was the only woman on that course, and it was a bit of a novelty, and they didn't really know what to make of me being there, because it was still fairly young in terms of time that women had been allowed in combat arms trades. Now, while we're still pretty outnumbered, it's not a novelty anymore. It's expected that there'll be women on every course. So that's certainly changed, but also we're getting better at figuring out how to work together, men and women. We don't have it perfect. We still have some significant issues, things that we're working towards and things that we're working to get better. But the conversations are open, and there's some significant effort being made to making it a better work environment for everybody. And we're talking about things, and not just women, but genders and sexual orientation. All of those things, when I first joined, weren't topics you talked about. Now, it's expected that those conversations are going to happen and continue to happen. Mm-hmm. What about you? What have you seen?
Like you mentioned, it's becoming more of a topic not only of men and women in the Army, but every single gender that there is out there. And it's just nice that you can be who you are and be accepted by the military and by the people you work with. And when it comes to military courses and stuff, you were talking about being the only female. It's nice having multiple females as fellow candidates, as well as having some staff members that you get to learn tips and tricks from, because they're right there and can pass on their knowledge when it comes to gender-specific things.
So one of the goals of the Army right now is to increase the recruitment and the retention of women. If you could tell your 3-up boss the answer to how to fix retention for women in the Army, what would you tell them?
You are my 3-up boss.
Right, okay. What would you tell me? What could I help make different in your squadron and in your military life?
I mean, I don't see many problems in our squadron, but when it comes to courses and stuff, there's a lot of segregation still happening. So the fact that within the band, it's not the women's band and the boys' band, it's the band. And the fact that it's one Army, one team, the fact that there isn't any difference between how men and women are treated is all I can really ask for.
Good.
What would you say to your 3-up?
Wow. I think it's a lot along the same lines. Some of the efforts that have been made in an attempt to protect women have segregated us and have made us different and separate. And really, a core psychological need is that sense of belonging. And I think a lot of us joined because we want to be part of a team. We want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And when we're treated differently, when we're segregated, it works against that. So to keep us together, to train us as one team, will help retention significantly, I think.
Sure.
So what do you wish that people or women knew about joining the armed forces?
Probably would have to be that it doesn't matter if you're the strongest. It doesn't matter if you're insanely fit. Like, when it comes to your courses and stuff like that, it's one Army. You work as a team with everyone on that course. So if you're not the strongest, somebody will help carry the weight, and you find a way to help them out. Mm-hmm. And it all balances out in the end. What advice would you have?
I think it's just the knowledge that there isn't a role in the armed forces that isn't open to women. That if you want a certain role or a certain job and you put your mind to it, it can be yours. And I'd encourage them not to listen to anybody that tells them that it can't be. What advice would you have if a young woman joining the military? What advice would you have for her?
Figure out who you are and figure out how to stand up for yourself, because there will be times where you have to be very direct, and being shy and passive doesn't really work. So figure out how you can stand up for yourself and what you believe in, because if you can fight for yourself, you can fight for others.
I like that.
What advice do you have for people?
Well, again, not dissimilar. It's not surprising that our minds kind of work very similarly, but it's find your voice. This is not an environment where being subtle or hinting at things is effective. You have to be comfortable being very direct, communicating very clearly, sometimes communicating very assertively. And so you need to be comfortable with that. You need to be comfortable with your voice, and you need to own that. So it's interesting that this year's theme for International Women's Day is choose to challenge, because really, you know, if you're looking for a challenge, you'll certainly find it in the military.
And if you're thinking about joining, it's a great opportunity, and there's no harm in trying. You know, worst thing, it's the best thing you find you have to do in your life.
Absolutely. So, happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.